Hi there, students. I'm XS. That's little x, little s, which stands for extra sweet, because that's what I am. I'm a Puppy-sensei, and I make Japanese content to help you level up your Japanese language skills. Happy New Year! Yo-yo toshio! Shinnen o mereto! I hope this new year brings... Well, listen. I'm in a bit of a weird place with this new year. In some respects, 2025 feels like it's likely to be a bit of a dark turn for many people in my communities. But in other ways, I think there's a lot to be hopeful for. I truly believe that. I'm fond of saying, and I really believe, that we learn best through our failures, that trials and difficulties can shape us, hone us, make us better and stronger. We're going to get through this. And that's all I'm going to say about that. For today's grammar content, I can't think of anything better to discuss than the future. In Japanese, the future is mirai. As you all probably know by now, I am now a founding streamer on the Irium US streaming app, which is so exciting. Did you know that Irium is an anagram of mirai? Yep, we're blasting into the future together and chasing our stars. Well, since we're talking about the future today, the grammar point that I want to introduce right now is Tsumori. Tsumori. Now, I've said this many times, but Japanese doesn't really have a future tense. There's no translation for the concept of will do something in Japanese, like I will go to the store or I will study all my words that I need to learn or something like that, right? Japanese instead resolves future plans through context. It's not grammar that allows you to say that you're going to do something or that you will do something. It's usually just finding the right context through what gets said elsewhere in the conversation. Before I go into Tsumori, I want to try to explain how this idea of future plans through context really plays out in Japanese. So let's look at a sentence, right? This is actually two sentences. Kuruma ga arimasen, kaimasu. Kuruma ga arimasen, kaimasu. So I've given the English translation as I don't have a car, I will buy one. Let's carefully break down these two sentences. We can translate the fragment ga arimasen as do not have or there is no. It's the negative version of the verb aru, which means to exist, and it's specific to inanimate objects. Remember, animate objects will use the verb iru, so aru for inanimate things, iru for living things. So a nice translation for the sentence kuruma ga arimasen might be I do not have a car. Pretty easy, okay? Well, then the next sentence is really just a verb, kaimasu. Remember, Japanese is perfectly fine with sentences that are just bare verbs. It's in the present tense, kaimasu. Incidentally, it's also polite. The plain form would be kao. Anyway, the point is that kaimasu is a plain present tense verb. And yet, here I've translated it as I will buy one, as in I will buy a car. And that kind of sounds like future tense, doesn't it? That's purely because we have the context to understand that I don't have a car. Because I just said that in the previous sentence. I don't have a car, and so I will buy one. Does that make sense? I hope so. Well, sometimes we might want to make that a bit more explicit by discussing what our plans are, right? We might want to say in Japanese that I definitely will do something in the future. In those cases, tsumori desu is going to come in handy for us. Let's look at an example sentence. Kuruma o kao tsumori desu, which I translated it as I plan to buy a car, right? Kuruma wa kau tsumori desu. That's pretty simple, right? Basically, we've taken our sentence from above and we've created a version where we're stating explicitly, I plan to buy a car, or I intend to buy a car. And that's the way we're going to use tsumori in most cases. Okay, but what do you notice here? Take a close look. Do you see the verb? It's in its base form. It's dictionary form. It's kao. It's not kaimas. It's just the plain form. It hasn't been conjugated into the te form or anything like that. Just plain kao, right? Tsumori follows the base form of any verb, and that makes it kind of an easy grammar pattern, but it's a little bit unusual in that respect. You also often see tsumori in structures like this. So suru tsumori. So tsuru tsumori. That's a confirmation that you plan to do something that was already suggested to you. For example, someone might say, 勉強してください. Please do some studying. And you could reply, そうするつもりです. Meaning something like, I plan on it, or I was already going to. You might be wondering at this point whether or not tsumori is always future looking. And if so, why is this not just considered the future tense? From my point of view, when I think about the way that we use tsumori in the negative, it becomes really evident to me that tsumori isn't just as straightforward as a simple future form, right? So let's take a look first at a simple sentence just with tsumori in the negative, right? Okay, so here's our example sentence. 邪魔するつもりはない. This is such a vibe. I feel like I say this sentence in English all the time. There are other ways to say this same sentence in Japanese too, but in order to make a point, this sentence is 邪魔するつもりはない. Yeah? And it means something like, I don't mean to bother you, or maybe in some cases it's going to mean something like, I don't mean to bother you, but, like you're about to clearly bother somebody, but you don't want to. Yeah? Okay. So notice how you create the negative of a sentence with tsumori. This is an important point. We're seeing jama suru in the base form. Basically, that means to bother someone or to disturb someone. Jama suru. Yeah? And then immediately following that, we have tsumori, indicating a plan to do something. And that's followed by wa nai, which just negates the plan or the intention. Do you see what I mean a little bit? It's not so much that tsumori is about the future specifically, as it is about your intentions. It's about your plans. We can see this even more clearly in a negative past conjugation of the same sentence, right? So this sentence is 邪魔するつもりはなかったです. 邪魔するつもりはなかったです. Yeah? It wasn't my intention to bother you. Again, remember that when we conjugate nai into the past tense, we don't conjugate it as a verb. We conjugate it as if it were an adjective, because it is an adjective. And so that gives us the polite past tense sentence, 邪魔するつもりはなかったです. So if you wanted to use this sentence in the plain form, right, it would be a little weird to do that, but if you wanted to use it in the plain form, it would be 邪魔するつもりはなかった. Why do I say that it's a little weird to use this sentence in the plain form? Well, because, like, you're saying, I don't want to bother you, which is kind of intrinsically a polite thing, right? You wouldn't say to your best buddy, oh, I don't want to bother you, but this is more likely to be something that you would say to, like, a teacher or a boss or something like that. Anyway, it's a bit complicated, but it's my impression that tsumori is more about having the intention to do something or not having the intention to do something, rather than it simply being thought of as the Japanese version of the English word will, right? So will, like will do, kind of indicates like that you're going to do something in the future, so it's sort of future scoping. And I don't really think that Tsumori really is. And there's some evidence to back this up. But anyway, that's probably enough for Tsumori for now. I am wishing you all a beautiful new year to come. Let's chase our stars together. I'll see you all next week. Mata raishu!